So the album is out.
Yes.
Came out on the 30th of July. Is that right?
Yeah.
What was that like putting it out?
Oh my gosh. We joke that it's like after Willis, Ellen Ramsey, it's like the longest ramp up to an album release ever. It just, because we had hoped to put it out last June and, everything was done, but it just didn't feel, I don't know, it didn't feel that the performance payoff factor wasn't there since so much of our sound is harmonies.
Yep.
So, we wanted to wait until we could do that again.
Cool. So have you been doing some shows?
We've done a few. We did our album release show, which was a big outdoor show in downtown Austin.
Right.
And we did and then since then, the numbers started getting crazy right around then. So the next day we did an in-store at our local record store, but we had no audience. It was just a stream.
Right.
And then this past weekend we had to pull down our show in Houston.
Oh boy.
Which was, heartbreaking. We love that venue. McGonagall's Mucky Duck in Houston is a great room. And we were really sad to have to miss it. And then the next day we went up to Dallas and just did a live stream from the stage. So again, zero audience.
So how do you feel about the live stream experience as an artist, as a vocalist?
It's obviously there are aspects that don't compare to being in the room with music and having that, just that present experience, and being away from your house and outside of the distractions, all of that. Like as a fan, as a music lover myself, just going to stuff, it's obviously not the same. And for us, it's not the same having that real-time feedback and, feeling the energy in the room. But I will say we have benefited so much from live streams this past year. I'm sure you've heard from every artist, about that. But, there are some fans who I might have seen maybe once a year.
Right.
Who this year I saw them every week.
That's great.
And, and we became friends. And I think the opportunity to really connect in that way was so different. And in some ways it's like you're further apart, but in a way it's more intimate.
Yep. Well, it's kind of like these Zoom interviews that I've been doing lots of these, and it's much better than a phoner by a long shot, which is.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, It's like things have really changed. And also, there are also some markets where you just don't ever get to, right? I mean, really small rural markets. And I had some fans who were like, oh my God, this has been the best year ever for me. Nobody ever comes to my town. And now I get like a great concert every night. So
very cool.
That was nice to hear too. Yeah.
Excellent. So let's talk about the record itself. So
right. My
understanding is you started back in like September of 2019. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what's the story? What the gestation period and all that? What happened?
Well, we just after we released our Waterline EP, we started writing again, and so we had this whole new collection of songs, and we were eager to get back in the studio and release a record in either either late spring or early summer of 2020. And so we had set the date for June 2020. Yep. So, just within a couple of sessions from September and then another session at the top of the year in 2020, like right after the holidays, we went into the studio. Our label, Lucky Hound Music, has this incredible facility called Studios at Fisher. And so, we had a great band, great players in there with us. And we recorded when we thought, oh man, it's like we're just getting it in time, this very tight 5 or 6 month schedule to release it out to the world. So everything was going, I mean, like, oh my gosh, from early fall of 2019 through the end of February 2020. I mean, we were like cranking so hard, storyboarding videos and,
right.
all the stuff that you do for a big release. And, and then it all kind of blew up just before we, hit go on a lot of those plans. So, the videos got to go undergo some cosmetic surgery and, right. Some different approaches to get some of the same ideas through. And, but mostly I think, similar to so many people's experience this past year, seeing resilience and seeing the ability to pivot in the people around you and in the teams that you work with,
Right.
is almost more impressive than if you had just done things to plan.
Yep.
So
Cool.
we feel really lucky.
Excellent. And so tell me a little bit about how the three of you are working together, because you're all individual artists and have been in the past.
Mhm.
So is this a big change for you, and especially in the writing process, and to work with two other people like this?
For sure. And, all of us have toured for a long time, and we've all done a lot of co-writing with other folks, but those co-writes are always, you and I might get together to write a song, and we know that once we leave the room, if we finish the whole song, right,
Yeah.
then once we leave the room, I may record it one way, you may record it another way, or I may pitch it to somebody, they'll record it a different way, and we're all okay with that,
Right.
okay, you like the word porch there, I like the word deck, but when you're writing to perform together, you've got to work all of that out, those
Right.
tiny details. You've got to really come to agreement or a compromise. And, as much as possible, we aim for consensus rather
Gotcha.
than compromise, but every once in a while you got to do it.
And of course, you must all have different personalities, obviously, strengths and weaknesses and quirks and whatever. Does that all come out in the process?
For sure. It's very interesting to me that even though we're very different people with different voices and different kinds of songs in our solo catalogs, a lot of our songwriting heroes are the same.
Uh-huh.
And whether it's, bubblegum pop or, deep roots, or like David Olney, like super crafty songwriting, lyric storytelling stuff, we all appreciate so many of the same things about songs. And so we haven't really had a conflict as far as that's concerned.
Right. Okay. And your producer is Michael Ramos, I believe.
Yeah, Michael Ramos. Uh-huh.
And he also plays among the band. So how does he fit into the puzzle? What is his role as producer?
Well, he's kind of the in-house producer for Lucky Hound and studios at Fisher, and he did so much. He helped. He worked with the label to figure out like what the budget was, and and that determines, how many days you have in the studio, what kind of musicians you get to bring in, and all that kind of stuff. He worked with us on each song. And, we sent him basically work tapes of all the songs as we heard them. And we had a conversation about each one. Here's kind of what we're hearing. And he would say, okay, well, I also have these ideas. And we just had a conversation about what kinds of sounds, what kind of approach we wanted, if we wanted to be really muscular or, really soft. And then also we just were so fortunate that he has had such a long storied career as a musician that he's got all of these amazing relationships. So I know that every player on this record was there because they trust Michael.
Gotcha. Yep. And
He
speaking
called
of
them and said,
players,
"You're
so
gonna be
you've got a
come
few
play on this great
players.
record." Yeah.
You got some players on it. So how did they come? Like Charlie Sexton is on it, and folks like that. So how did that happen? Was Michael the guy who got them together? Or did you guys talk about it? Or
yeah, we talked about players. We talked about folks that we like, and he's just friends with so many people. So he just calls Charlie, calls David Grissom, calls David Pulkingham, and he says, you're gonna like this record, come play on it.
Gotcha.
And they trust him. They're like, okay, if he says we're gonna feel good about it, then we're gonna feel good about it.
Right.
And one really magical day, maybe it was a couple of days, was Charlie Sexton and David Grissom had never actually played on the same session before.
Okay.
And they've both been like these, top tier A-list guitar players forever, both living here in Austin. And, they know each other, friendly and all that kind of stuff, but they just never been on the same recording session.
Right.
I mean, and it kind of makes sense because once you get one of them,
why do you need the other?
Why do you need another? Right. But was so great because it was like alchemy watching them work together, playing off of each other, listening to each other, and having this kind of conversation with their parts. Yeah. And we all kind of got a chuckle out of watching them because in between takes, they'd kind of like look at each other's setup, look at each other's gear, checking out.
You remember what track that was that they were working
on? The one that I remember most like just enjoying watching that, them playing off each other was Birthright.
And what do you do? What do you do with that right beneath the surface? You just started to scratch those answers to the questions you don't know how to ask yourself. How do you carry what you can't give back? Oh, you've inherited after the fact.
Birthright. Okay.
Birthright. And you can really hear some really unique guitar sounds and approaches in that song. And I think honestly, they were both kind of trying to impress each other.
Well, then why not?
Like, look at this, and not like this flashy thing, not
Right.
so much of that, but like, look at this cool thing that I'm adding to this, you know,
Yep.
this texture. And it was really neat to watch
So
that.
there are a couple of tracks I wanted to touch on. Promised Land, I think, is a highlight of the album, probably. So
Thank you.
Staring at the great divide. Staring at the great divide. Staring at the great divide. Looking to the left, looking to the right.
and I don't know, in your mind, do you think of them in terms of this is more my song than this song? I mean, how do
Really not. Really, we are all so invested in all of them, and it gets pretty heated. I mean, we love each other, and we're not mean to each other or anything like that, but we're so invested in coming up with something that we're proud of, that, you know, it really isn't like here's a Grace song that we added a little part to.
Right.
We all of them, the genesis of them was in the room.
Okay. So Promised Land is kind of a commentary on, I assume, on the U.S. and what you're thinking about where it is in the place of history in the world and all that. Did you have a discussion about that?
Oh yeah. And we wrote that earlier in 2019. So
Right.
it was before the 2020 elections. It was before all of that kind of stuff. It was just but well into this many years ramp up of division in our country, and seeing this divide that was, and the motif of the Great Divide is nothing new, but really feeling like, and I'm sure every generation feels like the polarization is unprecedented, and but I think one thing that really has set this time apart is that there were several things, pandemic included, that I feel like in previous generations, we saw disasters arise that ended up serving as the common enemy.
Right.
That united people of different ideologies. And to see something that was so by its nature completely apolitical become a political football, I think really underlined how different this time is.
Yep. I see what you mean.
And and like to have written it before that happened was like, I mean, we looked back at, all through last year, we looked back at the songs that were on the record and we were like, God, how did we know?
There's been a lot of that. People, artists kind of have their thumb on the pulse and they're feeling things through the air and whatever. So I guess there's something to that, because it's been happening a lot. People are like, oh my God, I wrote this song before all this happened and now it's happened. So
right. And maybe that's something to do with just the ever-present condition of man, but
possibly.
but it did feel, and then the cover of Carole King's So Far Away, that seemed totally prescient to us. We were like, wow, we could not have imagined.
There's a nice little trumpet bit in there. Who's playing that?
Doesn't help to know that you're just far away.
That's Michael Ramos. We didn't know that he played the trumpet, and he had played that piano part, which is not an easy part. Carole King is such a master, And he had done the piano and we'd sung it. And then we knew that he was going to, mix it and do some other stuff. And when we got the mix back, we were like, whoa, you called in some horns. Like, who's playing the trumpet? That's beautiful. And he was like, actually, I did. So we were like, what? You played the trumpet? How did we not know that? And so it was really fun to learn that he played it as a kid growing up and
cool.
Has that in his back pocket.
There you go. You never know when it's going to come in handy. Very good. Now, the other track I wanted to touch on was Beauty Way, which is kind of a guitar driven thing, but then kind of breaks into this organ-y sound. And there's some interesting lyrics in there as well. So what can you tell me about that one?
My father made a pretty damn good living playing music on the Beauty Way. He's gonna die with some money in his pocket. Wish I could do the same today, little darling. Wish I could do the same today.
Eliza Gilkison is one of our heroes and a great mentor to me and to us, really. And she's, for so many years, she has really helped me and lifted what I'm doing. And I remember that song being the AAA song. It was like, for non-comment and commercial AAA, it was like the hit, and I remember before I was even playing out, just being in love with that song and thinking, what an incredible metaphor for finally, for a lot of us, seeing that we were like, mine was the first, I'm kind of the tail end of the boomers just before the millennials, but seeing people who were just a little bit younger than me being called the first generation that wasn't going to probably live longer.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Or be more stable than their parents. Right. And so that song came out and it was like, you were starting to see that not just for artists, but for all of Western society. And, and then later to have become an artist, and all three of us look at that song and we just think, my God, she felt that about her dad. Writing those great songs for Disney and stuff. And we think that looking at her. Like, oh yeah, you could make a pretty damn good living compared to what people are facing now. And we look at people who are 20 now and we just think, how are they going to do it?
That is a good question. I mean, and they're making amazing music. It's not a quality issue. It's like,
so much creativity. New sounds, new approaches. There's so much good stuff coming out. And, it's like the making, Rebecca has this great saying, and I totally steal this from her, but she says, the buying of, like, the consumption of music has become free.
Absolutely.
But the making of music still is not. And how do we bridge that divide? We have yet to see.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned when you were talking about the kind of AAA thing, which is a format of kind of album-oriented, adult-oriented something or other.
Right. Oh, sorry for
But anyway, but that leads me to like you guys are kind of considered Americana and contemporary folk, but then I saw somebody wrote where you're kind of more West Coast California. With the sound that you've come on here, it's a little slicker than that. I was wondering if you guys think about that at all. If you wonder, what format you fit in, or you even care? You just doing what you do.
It wasn't intentional that we went in a slightly more glossy pop direction than any of our solo work has, but all of us love that stuff too. We love rootsy stuff and we love glossy stuff. So, but I do think that subconsciously there was a permission in working with other people when all of you say, yeah, that's a good direction to go in. It's a little bit scarier to step out from the folk ledge when you're by yourself.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And when you have two other people who are like, yeah, this is what we're doing, we feel good about this, then I think subconsciously that's in there.
Right. So have you guys been writing songs more since then? Do you have a stash somewhere or what?
We haven't. We realized, and we talked about it a lot, and we met constantly this past year, not in person. We weren't in the same room for 17 months.
Jeez.
But but we met on Zoom and we had endless phone calls and everything. But what we discovered was that our particular process of songwriting among the three of us didn't work on Zoom. For multiple reasons. One is that so much of the beginning of writing for us comes out of these very like mildly physical, sympathetic interactions, pouring tea for one another, giving each other a hug, like showing each other something in a book. Just that intimacy that comes with physical closeness, I think, is actually part of our process. We usually have a very in-depth conversation with each other before we start writing every time.
Yep.
And the other thing is that structurally, our songs are really so built on counter harmonies and, kind of interrupted descants and things that with a latency online, you just can't, you can't do it. So, and so we, it was a little bit frustrating. And then we just realized we're just going to have to wait till we're in person again before we can write.
So do you have a plan? Are you thinking ahead?
Right now, we are just navigating gig by gig
Gotcha.
to see if they're going to happen, to see if it's safe to ask people to gather, and and then take it from there.
Austin's turned into a big place. I love Austin. I've been there several times to this ACL thing, and I think the first time I went was in I went there in the early 90s, but it's like doubled or tripled the size the last time I was there, which was maybe 10 years ago. So it's quite a place now, isn't it?
It really has changed a lot. I don't consider myself somebody who saw old Austin, but I have lived here for 25 years.
Oh, you've seen enough.
and I've seen enough to see how drastically it's changed and grown. And it no longer feels like a college town. I'll say that.
Yeah. It's big. Let's hope it keeps its character, though.
Yeah, I hope so.
Excellent. Well, thank you for talking to me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we got it all organized. You had me off by about 12 hours, huh?
I know. I had reversed our time slots, and
it's a miracle.
I was just glad I didn't miss it.
It's so hard with the time difference and people getting their heads around what you're like a day ahead, and what is this?
I know it. And so when I thought I was supposed to be talking to you, I had a nurse sticking a swab up my nose. So
nice one. Well, that always looks great.
And that wouldn't have been a very good interview, I don't think.
Probably not. No, I'm glad you're doing well. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Thanks, Marty. Really appreciate it.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Take care.